Yep. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna restart Facebook and call you right back. Or maybe, hold on. Maybe are we streaming? Oh yeah, yeah. It's working. It's just not recording a copy as well. So we're good. Everything is going on its own time. So what's going on? Oh, you're not surrounded by by idiots anymore?
Just not muck about with this. And buckets. And he went, yeah, I'm fine. And I said, oh, because I'm worried too. So this isn't, like, I'm just going to come straight out. Like, is this an ambush meeting? Like, you ambushing me right now?
On
That's,
just real quick, just because I didn't have your volume on. So for anyone who just joined who didn't hear Paul in the first 2 minutes there,
I
we're
got
re
fired.
yeah, we're recapping Paul getting
Recap.
fired. So yeah.
Fucking fired.
All
So
right.
yeah, I got an email in the morning going, oh, can you come to this meeting? So turn up, guy's sweating a bucket load. So I thought that's a good icebreaker. I'll bring that up. In fact, he's sweating a fucking bucket load. And I said, should I be worried? And he goes, nah, nothing to worry about, nothing to worry about. And I went, oh, thank God. Because I haven't met you before, so I should be completely honest with you. I thought this was an ambush meeting. So I'm glad there's nothing to worry about. So this isn't an ambush meeting then? He goes, no, of course not, of course not. But there's nothing to worry about, Paul, but can you get the fuck out of here? So I thought this wasn't, you just said a minute ago, this wasn't an ambush meeting. Like, should I not be had time to prepare for this? Or seems like you ambushed me a little bit. And I had any time to prepare. And you said there's nothing to worry about literally a minute ago.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on, guys? And then he looked to his sidekick and he goes, oh, your numbers, Paul. I was going, yeah, what about them? Show on my numbers. What are you saying about my numbers? What's the problem? And he goes, well, they're not where they need to be. So I said, okay, well, where are they? What are you saying? What are you saying? Where are you saying on that? He goes, I don't know what your numbers are. So I said, so you called a meeting to say how bad my numbers are, and you don't know what the numbers are. Is that where we're at the moment? And he goes, well, it's not just that, and I'm glad you said that because your behaviour, Paul, is unacceptable, and it's stuff like this. You're being very confrontational with me. I said, what do you mean? Like, you're just giving me an adjective. You say my behaviour and me being. What does that mean, being confrontational? Like, surely any question could be seen as confrontational, right? Like anything.
Yeah.
Like, Jamie, would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah. I mean,
That
what?
could be seen as confrontation because I'm probing you for an answer.
Well, and plus the thing that I think is so amazing about that setup is when you go to someone and you're like, "Well, the problem you see is your behavior." The moment you go, "Well, what do you
Oh, give me
mean
an
by
example.
that?" Yeah, the moment you ask for any sort of expansion on something that vague, that they can do that. Well, see, this right here is what I'm talking
Yeah, that's what we
about.
mean.
Yeah,
It's like, no, I don't know
ridiculous.
what you mean. I'm not mentally ill, so I don't know what you mean. And then, yeah, it just went. And then I said, well, if it comes down to behaviour, remember that all the stuff I've had to put up with, I've had people just falling asleep on the floor. Actually, on the floor, we have to have meetings about people spending too much time on colouring in books, plaiting their hair, using mobiles. I mean, that's not me. I don't bring a mobile to work. I'm not plaiting hair. I'm not like doing colouring in books. Like, I'm not falling asleep on the floor. And also, like, I've had to make complaints about the weird conversations of like niggers wanting to kill Jews. Had to put up with that. And when I brought that up, obviously, put you in a weird situation. Are you sure it's not that? That I've just embarrassed a few people trying to keep, because it embarrassing people because I actually want to keep my job.
Yeah,
Like, I need to
right?
know what the standard is, because you're saying that the standard is my behaviours aren't good enough. So you're saying colouring in books all day, falling asleep at the desk, talking about packies, wanting to kill Jews, doing songs about niggers. This is all good, right? I'm not getting it. He just like, get out now. I'm escorting you out. And then
Well,
on the way out, I was like, oh, as soon as you're going to fire me anyway, just man to man, like, how do you do this to people? Why are you doing this to me? And you must know none of this makes any sense. I get the corporate world, you're just following whatever, but you got no sense of, you might be wrong on this one. I don't even get a chance to speak. You're just like, just get the fuck out of here.
yeah. Well, that reminds me, like, I have these situations at my one job, like this woman who dated this guy who, I mean, always just leaves her and runs off and then comes back, and of course for the 2 or 3 days that he's gone, she's a mess and doesn't know how to function and all this stuff. And like the woman will be like, well, my family, they stopped talking to me. They stopped talking to me, and they've always told me this guy is no good, and he's just gonna run off and leave you, and now he's left me, and I can't call them, and they won't answer, and this and that. And like I've had to go to her and just be like, listen, it might not be that they don't care. It could actually be that they care and they don't want to be the ones to, like, sometimes it's easier to say nothing than to have to admit, like an I told you so situation or anything like that. And it's like, when you confront people with that, like, listen, I know you're just doing your job. Like, this is a top-down situation, but how do you do this as a person? Like, people don't want to confront that answer for themselves. It's not even, you're irrelevant in this scenario. They don't want to admit to
Yeah, you seem
themselves.
like an alright guy. It's just like a droid I was talking to.
Yeah.
Anybody home today?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
he can't handle admitting that truth to himself.
Yeah, and you must admit, like, you've brought me in and you've got nothing on me. You've got my numbers, you don't even know what they are. My behaviour, you've got no examples. You said it 1 minute is not an ambush meeting. Within seconds, it's pretty much like an ambush meeting. Why are you even doing ambush meetings? And then you say there's nothing to worry about when there clearly was something to worry about. What is wrong with you, bro?
Yeah.
You can't even just be honest with me.
Yeah.
I've got no respect.
I mean, even like there's ways even to like sugarcoat
Yeah,
it.
if it
Like
was
when
me,
you're
I'd
like,
just say, look, I've been in the office for 2 days now and replaced the other guy. I've never met you before, so I'm really sorry to tell you that I'm being told I have to fire you.
yeah, or even like, like, is this an ambush meeting? Is there a problem?
Yeah,
Whatever, and be
yeah.
like, well, yeah, there are some things of concern, and we just we gotta do what we gotta do here. I'm not happy about it. I can understand you're not
Yeah, but
happy
they're
about it.
trying to
Like,
trick me as if I'm that stupid to go, oh, no, it obviously wasn't an ambush meeting. And oh, he was right, there's nothing. What
yeah.
are we doing?
Well, and it's probably makes it more uncomfortable for them knowing that you're seeing this bullshit coming like a mile away. Where it's like, you know,
Yeah, and you've made all these judgments on me. It's the first time I've ever spoken to you.
well, and the crazy thing too is I remember just a few weeks
How
ago
come
you
all
telling
this is
me
true
like,
to you? Like, yeah, it seems like you've got an idea in your head about me, and you've never spoken to me.
when
You're
you've
probably
always
single.
said that like you try to not engage in political conversation, but it'd be all the women in the office engaging in it and not even realizing they are, first off.
Yeah, yeah.
And then second off, it's like when you chime in with a bit, it's like suddenly because what you have to say may like vary or
It's got
differentiate in
hive
this.
mind.
Yeah,
That's what they got at Lloyd's. They've got this thing called hive mind,
yeah,
which is the attitude. So we all know what hive mind means. You've all got to be drones in this cult to serve the queen. You're all slaves to the queen. And
yeah.
any thoughts outside of that hive is not welcome.
Well, that kind
It,
of that brings me into. Let me
well,
tell
it's
you.
going to fit in. I can fit it in better, bro. Because guess how many LBGTQ flags I've got to pass just to get to my desk?
Oh, you don't. Let me tell you, if I see another rainbow flag, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself.
Well, I'm
That,
looking at this is a bank, Jamie. I've got
yeah,
to walk past at least 30, at least.
that's
And
insane.
now the staff are leaving. It's bye bye to the Lloyd's LBGTQ staff. We hope you do well. It's like, well, what about all the straight dudes? You're not saying goodbye to them, or or the mums that are married, family mums. It's just goodbye to all the LGBTQ Lloyd staff, and it's massive. It's like, what about all the other guys that lost their jobs that weren't gay or
Yeah.
trans? Like, it's like, do they not get anything? And why do I need to walk past 30 things, 30 LGBTQ evoke? It's not like small flags, like they're taking a whole thing and they've got all their press stuff on the wall. It's like I can't even get to my desk without being hounded about where you want me to stick my penis.
Well, what's interesting about that is I was on Amazon. I forget what I was looking at, but I came by this sort of satirical story that was like about gender stuff and sort of making jokes about it. Again, it's a satirical thing. And then I was checking out the author, and then I ended up on this really interesting piece that the author wrote, where he basically said, if you see someone wearing a Christian cross, or even the Star of David for that matter, like, and you see them wearing it, you know what they believe. Like, it's a religious symbol, so you know the beliefs that are tied into them wearing that symbol. The rainbow flag has now become that, where now if you see that flag,
Yeah, they're going to be feminist, communist, pro-abortion. Trump isn't my president. We got to remain. Brexit's a bad idea. Tommy Robinson's racist.
well, and beyond that though,
Sign of slavery.
and even more
oppressed
specific to
everyone.
that though is the gender theory
Carbon.
concept. It's the gender theory concept though, where there's more than two genders.
Right.
There's all of that stuff. And now what the thing that this guy expounded on in this article though is basically this whole gender nonsense is a secular argument for a soul, because he said if you ever listen to these people the way they're talking, it's like, well, and it's interesting because when I went to the city, I did an interview with a trans person who I'm friends with. They're a Republican, Trump supporter, they're just, you wouldn't even know they were trans unless they told you. Like, that's how much transition they are. So they'll be the first ones to say, fuck this pronoun bullshit. Everyone looks at me and says he. Fuck what bathroom I go into. No one questions me walking into the men's room because it looks like a dude. Like, you wouldn't know otherwise. So, I even asked them. I said, I found this article. It's real interesting, but it basically puts forth the idea that this whole trans thing is like a secular argument for a soul. Now, asking them, they're raised Republican Christians, so they're like, well, the only thing I know of a soul is the biblical soul. But it was still very, very interesting and compelling because it's this idea like, I'm physically born a woman, but deep down inside, I feel like I am something else. And he just goes through and points out all the language they use to describe this, and it's akin to a soul. And it's like the amount of appropriation that the LGBTQ whatever community is doing. I mean, even at the parade that I saw last week in the city, there were giant floats where they were holding up signs of people, like gay people, and it, like, on the background it said, I have AIDS, but I'm not whatever, or I'm this and I'm not that. And like, but they were all done in religious iconography. And between seeing that and then the two protester clashes I saw. Now, the one I uploaded the video of, because there were like six people in New York City, which is fucking, like, has been rainbow vomit everywhere. I mean, there was rainbows on every storefront, rainbow flags, people selling rainbow flags, and then you could just find them on the street, and I mean, like a sea of fucking rainbows, this shit was. And six people there that were just saying, there is only man and woman. There is only, two genders. God created man and woman in his image. And the mob mob of people that chased them out of, I mean, just
Because
vicious.
they want to show tolerance and show how inclusive they are.
Well, and that was the thing, like, and it was amazing that
All
you...
about diversity, so, you know, you want to embrace Christianity, of course.
When you basically had, like, you know...
And they're not down with Islamophobia, of course, but bashing Christian, totally.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the craziest thing is, like, you have myself, you had, oh God, why is his name? You had me, John, who was the person I interviewed, and Dan, who was with me helping with all the camera stuff. And we were all saying, isn't it amazing that this whole thing was like the 50th anniversary of Stonewall? And it's like, okay, so you had this incident where it was like the mob against a handful of gay people. 50 years later, we are now seeing the gay mob against a handful of religious people who are just out here, I mean, getting drowned out in the sound of, like, Madonna music and, you know, all this other bullshit. But it's the fact that they couldn't tolerate 6 people standing on a street corner preaching their own message. Now, those people, I even said, I was so compelled, I went up to the one guy and I said, listen, I may not agree with all your views, but I respect that you're out here trying. Like, but these people have the minds of children. Like, you can't reason with them, but I respect that you're trying. The other group we saw, though, now this group was interesting, and we didn't get video of it because I think we were just all so exhausted at that point. But there was a group that had, like, I mean, signs that said, like, Jesus kills homos, and then references Genesis. And I'm looking at it being like...
Jesus wasn't even a thing in Genesis.
That's exactly. So I saw that, and I'm like, is this real? Like, is this a plant? Like, is someone trolling here? Like, I feel like I'm on a hidden camera thing, because it doesn't make sense. And then you have this one sign where it says... it says Donald Trump... end gay marriage or something. Like, they're asking Trump to do so. And then if you look at the back of the sign, it says, lukewarm Christians like Donald Trump will damn us all to hell. So...
it's not Trump's issue. You're meant to have separation between church and state. So it should be the church's choice what they do.
Yeah.
And they don't have any response. If they want to do gay marriage, they can do gay marriage. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it.
But now think about this. You have these people holding these signs basically saying Trump is too soft on gay issues and stuff like that because Trump's a New York liberal at heart. Like, he doesn't give a shit what people do in their personal lives. Even when questioned about gay marriage, he said, you know, I don't think it passed the way it's technically supposed to, but it's here now, so what are you going to do about it? Like, I mean, he never said he was against it. He just said the means in which it was accomplished was wrong, which I completely agree and back. You know, if it's going to be a state issue, each state should have done it. It shouldn't have been the Supreme Court, whatever. That's a side note. But these people aren't Trump supporters. They're saying Trump is just as bad. I mean, they even had one sign where, let me tell you, the list it was like Obama, Trump, the KKK, Muslims, homosexuals, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was like their list of sinners. And I'm looking at it being like, never in my life did I think Barack Obama and the KKK would be on the same hit list of someone. Like, this is insane. Like, so, I mean, I'm telling you, the signs this one group of Christians were holding was so disjointed from reality. But the scarier part was, you then had, again, a LGBTQ mob going after them, being like, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. And, like, then you have us 3 Trump supporters standing on the side just being like, wait, they don't like Trump. And this group is saying, fuck Trump, to try to combat a group that doesn't like him. Like, none of them have a grip on the reality of the situation. Like, it was like the most mind-blowing thing where you're just like, this is dumb versus dumber in a shouting match. And it was like so over the top, I thought it was a plant. Like, I really thought it was like the left paid these guys and were like, here, just go here, you rile them up, you know, then maybe there'll be a reason for a hoopla and, you know, whatever. Because other than that, I mean, it was all just, I mean, I'd say boring. Like, I didn't see anything, you know, again, I went to try to get, like, sexualization of children interviews and stuff like that, besides the one interview I was doing specifically with John. I didn't see a lot of it. Like, I almost feel like New York City went to all the parades and floats and were like, listen, got to keep your clothes on. We're not having a PR problem. This is some bullshit. Like, not doing it. Like, I mean, I could probably count the amount of indecent things I saw on one hand. And it was not during the main parade. It was just weirdos showing up for whatever. But still, the clashes between the handful of religious people and the mobs were like, what the hell? Like, you guys could ignore these people. And it's one of these things where, like, as far as this sort of, like, leftist, globalist, hive mind programming, like, the more I see them push back...
The hive mind thing's important, because who is it that declares what LBGT represents? And it is this mouthpiece for homosexuals.
Well, yeah.
I don't get it. Like, how come they set what the image is, what the agenda is, what you should, like it is true. Like, I know people go nuts when I say it, but if I see someone with a rainbow stuff on, I can stereotype a lot about their worldviews, and I can be deadly accurate. Like, people say, oh, Paul, you shouldn't judge people, you shouldn't judge people. It's like, yeah, I shouldn't, but I'm really successful.
But it's too easy. Rate. Yeah, like that's...
90% rate. And the people that I get wrong tend to end up being my bestest friends ever. Because if I get you wrong, I'm going to apologize to you.
Well, and that's, you know, and
the reason I'm willing to take the punt is because I'm so accurate. Well, my friends have noticed that they don't say it anymore, because on 3 occasions I've gone to my friends and gone, who sexually abused you as a child? And they're like, Paul, you can't ask that. It's like, come on, it's so obvious.
Well, and it's what like, even at that, it's like, and you know it.
Right, 3 out of 3.
Well, see, and that's the thing, is it is
worrying, because we need to talk about it, because the fact that no one's willing to talk to you about it is how it happened.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is like, there is, like, there's this one guy I talked to on the warm line at work, like, where it's like, I
just spent a couple of hours with you and I asked him, where are your parents? Where are your brothers? Where are your sisters? Where are your family? So it seems like this could still be going on.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things. And I'll tell you what, even some of these people, like,
and just the old, sorry to go on, but just the old Stefan Molyneux tricks, like when they talk about it and they laugh, just ask them why they laugh. Like, they don't have to laugh, but it's not funny.
Yeah. Well, even, like, I know people that I've talked to from, like, my other job and stuff, where it's like, you know, the idea within the LGBTQ whatever community that conversion therapy and things like that are these, like, great evils that you can't even contemplate and everything like that. I know older men that were at one point living very dangerous gay lifestyles that have now repented and are much happier people living a life in the biblical sense of morality and stuff. And I mean, there is no denying that they are in a happier, more fulfilled place without those lifestyle choices. And I mean, they would even, like, you know, as far as talking to me, they would be like, you know, I'm not gay. If anything, I am a homosexual. I believe it's an activity. It's an action. It's not a part of my identity and this, and that. And I'd be like, hey, I completely understand. I get where you're coming from. I understand the points. This is that. Yeah, and they would say all the time, though.
Sorry for them.
They would say all the time. They would say all.
Comes at the end of it, that tunnel.
Well, they would say all the time even how they would end up having a therapist, and they would go into their therapist's office and lay this out at the beginning. This is the issue I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with my homosexuality and trying not to live that lifestyle. And they'd lay it all out, and they'd be like, this is what I want to achieve, this is that, and this is what will ultimately be best for my mental health and well-being. They would explain their plan, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, how they want to live, and all that to their psychiatrist. And they would say, after a point in time, all of the psychiatrists turn around and go to them and say, but don't you think you'd just be happier living your life as a gay man? And he would just be like, what the fuck have I been doing with you for months? Like, I've been trying to tell you, I view this as an issue I'd like to overcome, And you're saying, like, he's like, he would tell me, he's like, basically, it'd be like if I came in, like, and I was like, I have a gambling addiction. I can't gambling. I've gambled away my mortgage, this, and that. And next thing you know, these people turn around and say, but don't you want to just go to the casino? Don't you think a weekend at the casino would be fun? Like, he's like, it's so ridiculous. But it's again that hive mind thing where it's like they can't function out of the politically set narratives and everything.
Like, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but if with work, when everyone in that place was homosexual or female, and then when you get the homosexual guys or the cuck guys going, yeah, do you like Nigel Farage? It's like, yeah, I think he's alright. And he goes, but he's racist. It's like, can you just name me what makes you think Nigel Farage is racist? And he goes, oh, because he started the BNP. And it's like, no, he didn't. It's never been part of it. No, that's not Nigel Farage. You got the wrong guy. And it's like, oh no, that you're right, that wasn't him. And it's like, do you still think I'm a racist because you got that massively wrong? It's like, well, you could be a closet racist. It's like, okay, do you honestly think I would support Farage if I thought for a second he was a racist? What did he do that was racist? And he'll just laugh and go, hundreds of things, Paul, hundreds of things. It's like, okay, there's hundreds of things. What's the top one for you? Well, I can't think of one off the top of my head. And it's like, look, dude, I don't want to go down this road, but I've got Indian people sat next to me, I've got black people sitting next to me, I'm a Jew. What makes you think 53% of Britain is racist? Like, I'm seriously want to know, like, what's going on in your head?
And it's like,
and well, they're closet racist. It's like, but what has Farage done that's ever been considered racist? You know, you should have an example if you're going to call someone a racist.
Well, and it's like
it's the same with Trump. It's like, well, if you like Trump, you must be a racist. Like,
well, I was going to say, even you saw this a lot in people. You saw it a lot in people when they were going around.
If you can name something Farage or Trump's done that's racist, I will seriously consider withdrawing my support.
Yeah, well, and you know, it's funny, even to just 2 points on that. Like, you know, we saw that a lot with the Tommy Robinson interviews where they're like, will you vote for Tommy Robinson? They're like, no, he's a racist. And they're like, well, what has he done? Well, where do you start? There's so much. Okay, just name me one thing. Well, you know, that one time he said a thing about a Muslim. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you have no idea. Well, you know, he said a Muslim was a rapist. And it's like, yeah, the Muslim that was on trial for being a rapist. You're a racist too. Get away from me, racist. It's like, oh my God, just stop. Like, it's like, you don't even know, like a day in the life of someone whose mind is like that must be just a horror show. But, what was the other point I was going to make?
Well, the other thing is a concern to me, because we all know, I know everyone's heard this, but if you're saying this and using this language towards me, I should be more upset, because you're saying it's okay to basically use violence against me. Because it would be okay. If I was genuinely a racist, genuinely a Nazi, it'd be totally fine to beat me up.
Well, and I'll tell you, actually.
Genuinely, and what do you do if racism really happens? I'm with Jesse Lee Peterson. I don't think white people are racist.
No.
So that's for a different subject.
Well, actually, that leads...
Like, what happens if white people do become racist? They actually do. No one's going to believe it because they've heard you cry so many damn times. And what about people that... And this woman egged in, and she was like, but Trump hates all women, and it's obvious by the grab him by the pussy remarks. I said, the grab him by the pussy remarks, unfortunately, is the reality of a billionaire's lifestyle. What he said was true. I mean, it's very distasteful, but it was in the 80s or something. It was a hidden camera. He was trying to make Bush Jr. feel at home. It was a silly joke, but it was true.
Yeah.
If you're a billionaire, women will let you do anything to them.
Not even a billionaire. I go to people all the time. I go to people all the time and I say, if Elvis in his heyday made those exact same remarks, you wouldn't bat an eye at it, because women were falling over themselves at Elvis's feet. Like, it's the reality of anyone in the spotlight. Like, I've told people, even just being in a local band, like playing gigs in my little local area, there were girls, and just the fact that I'm on stage with an instrument, I could have walked up to them and grabbed them by the pussy, and they would have loved it. Like, it is just a thing that certain women get because of men being in the spotlight or in a predominant, situation, or a billionaire, or it's like in any other context. If Brad Pitt came out and said that same thing, everyone would have just been like, yeah, well, they're groupies. We all know that. But I was gonna say, even I was watching one of those Vice things where they bring together liberals and conservatives and have them all talk. Even the thing where someone said during one of those, Trump is a racist, and they brought up that thing about the Central Park Five, like those kids that were going around raping someone or something. And this other guy that's there, black gay person, pulls out the article, and they're like, "This is the article. Nowhere in this article is race mentioned." And everyone who referenced it says, "Well, why'd you bring that with you? Why'd you have to do that?" He said, "It's a receipt. Like, this is the reality of the situation. You're invoking it to try to claim it's something it isn't. I'm bringing the proof." And they're like, "Man, you were over the top. Why'd you got to do that? This is," and it's like, it's again this sort of like, I'm going to make a claim based on bullshit that I don't know, and then when confronted with the reality, I'm going to call you crazy for having reality on your side. It's this weird sort of gaslighting thing where it's like, you reference something that isn't true, and then when the truth is brought to you, you accuse the other person of being nuts and out of touch. It's a weird...
That's what happens to me at every single job. People get leg on, I'm okay with Trump, I'm okay with Brexit, I'm okay with Farage. And it's like, instead of talking to you about it, it just spirals for them. It's like, oh, he must be part of the KKK too. He must be a Nazi. He must be... It just gets to ridiculous levels.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things, though, I wanted to bring up with you mentioning the racist and violence thing, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine because he brought up there's now this sort of hoopla, in gaming where, like, and my friend brought it up where he said, it's really troubling the level of dehumanizing that you see. And it's not even humanizing, but it's like, all right, for example, Call of Duty, you had IGN at one point, talking about the new Call of Duty, and they were all complaining how real it is. And it's like, first of all, what the fuck game do you think you're reviewing? This isn't Fortnite. Yes, it's realistic. It's Call of Duty. That should be the end of it. But you have this one girl who goes, well, and you're going into civilian households. Now, first of all, I don't know how you differentiate a civilian house from a terrorist house from a whatever. Like, I guess they assume flags should have to, like, we should have a marking, like biblical times or something, like, on the door so we know.
Well, we all know why she's used that word.
Yeah, so then she goes, but she follows up and says, well, they're civilian houses. I mean, they're filled with terrorists, but it's still a civilian house. And it's like, no, you just said these houses are filled with terrorists. Like, obviously it's a terrorist location. Like, but it's again that...
Yeah, maybe you should put on some muffins.
But it's her trying to humanize the terrorists because in that scene they're Muslims. So now you also have this other thing going on where they're saying it's wrong in World War II games to have people play on the side of the Nazis. And it's like it's basically this idea that if you're playing a multiplayer shooter and you end up on the side of the Nazis, it's unfair because I guess if you're a Nazi in a game, you must be a Nazi in real life. So they're basically like saying, we need it where if you've
got to humanize the terrorists, but not humanize the Nazis.
Exactly. Where it's like, if they're a brown person, you have to show how they were forced into this radicalized position and they had no other choice. But if it's a Nazi, you need to dehumanize them so we feel nothing about shooting these people.
Yeah, I bet they were having loads of fun during the war too.
Well, and it's like, so you have that sort of, and my friend Dave even said to me, he said, Nazis were people too. Like, and these people just want to dehumanize it, so if someone gets hit with that label, they feel nothing about actions being taken against them. Now, I brought up to him, and I said, listen, I know this is a touchy subject for some, and people may not agree with my position because, I said, but I'd at least be willing to hear out someone who had my position when I was younger that abortion is a horrible thing for a woman to have to go through. It's one of the most difficult choices to make, and it's, almost a necessary evil. I said, I don't agree with that now. That's what I used to think, but I at least have respect for the people that have arrived at that conclusion. I said, as I am now, I think the option should be off the table, because if the option isn't there, it won't be used, and people will hopefully be more responsible leading up to it. I said, but the thing that's most troubling for me is now safe, legal, and rare isn't even on the discussion. It's a woman's choice. It doesn't matter if it's day one or the day before delivery. It's a woman's choice. It's her body, and the phrases they use. It's a leech. It's a parasite. I said, if we are dehumanizing the unborn and calling them leeches and parasite, well, where do we start becoming humans? Like, at what point? Like, it's basically this idea, like, you are only a human if you are a part of the hive mind.
On the planet, yeah, it just merges in with that, the depopulation.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you're right, because it's like, even at that, the environmental worldview is that humans are a scourge on the planet, and we are hurting it and harming it, and all this other nonsense. And yeah, it's a mindfuck trying to find the consistency in all of it, but the only overarching thing, and this is one of the things I tell people, and at first they think I'm being hyperbolic when I'm like, leftism is a death cult. It really is. Like, people think Alex Jones is being crazy when he's saying it's a satanic death cult, but it's like, between abortion, the environmentalism, and everything else, it is a death cult, where it's like...
To me, abortion's very similar to the baby ritualistic, sacrificing the firstborn.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and if you think about it, it's true, because most of these women, when they use the excuse, oh, well, I wasn't ready for a kid yet, or I wasn't ready to be a parent yet, or, the economic situation.
I'm sure those excuses were flying around.
It would generally, in most cases, be their firstborn, because most parents are not having a kid, having the joy of parenthood brought into their life, and then deciding second time around to get an abortion. I highly doubt it works like that. So, I mean, it really would be what would be the firstborn in most cases that are being aborted.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's fucking...
Thanks, Jamie.
And you know what, the one thing I can't understand is, at all of these, like, within the past month being Pride Month, any sort of these political LGBT whatever rallies I've been to, Planned Parenthood is always there in full force. And I'm just like, why does Planned Parenthood need to be concerned with gays and lesbians and everyone? Like, who here is getting pregnant? No one. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but in the terms of the leftist hive mind, it does, because, lesbians and abortion is a women's health care right, so, you need to fight for women's health care and all. Like, it's a tit for tat thing, where it's like, well, we're here with you today, so you better be here for us when we need you, and, like, hive mind coalition, basically. But, yeah, most people are dumb. They really are. I mean, even, like,
I'm dumb. I'm really dumb. I've always been one of the dumbest. So it's got to be something worse than that.
I don't know.
I'm dumb, I'm just willing to listen, I think.
Or willing to question. That's one of the bigger things that I think most people don't have. Most people don't want to have to question things. It's actually like, I was talking to a coworker about it, how we were saying how we both know people that get arrested. Like they basically get arrested all the time. And it's like, you start to realize that it's like, to them, like, they'll come out of being locked up and you'll be like, hey, so you look great. What happened? They'll be like, oh, going to jail, it was like Club Med. Like, I ran into a bunch of
men's club.
of friends I hadn't seen in forever. We had a pool table, cable vision, like
books.
Yeah, and like it's like a men's club where they get to get away.
Shredded, and the women love it. Bad boys shredded, boy.
Yeah, and it's like
get out.
Well, and it's also the thing of, like, you don't have to think about anything. Your whole day is structured and set for you. You don't have to decide what time lunchtime is. You're told. You don't have to know what time bedtime is. You're told. Like, you don't have any of the responsibilities. All of that is structured and planned for you. And
John,
it's like,
you've seen Jeffrey Epstein got arrested last night?
I didn't know that's what happened. I did see a headline where they said they came down on him.
Well, yeah, they started releasing all the case files last week.
Oh, you know
That
what?
was that. And the reason why that's kind of interesting is because people are questioning Dershowitz, like, what is his connection to Epstein and how far back does it really go?
Can I just,
And then
real quick, just to make myself seem like a wild anti-Semite, when I was seeing Epstein's name this morning, I kept thinking Weinstein. Like, I got my Jews
but
confused, but...
Yeah, well, Weinstein was hanging around with Epstein as well.
Yeah, but for some reason, I thought they came back down on
He's
Weinstein, but, alright, it makes more sense that it was Epstein.
Yeah, so all the case files were released, and then he was arrested last night on the tarmac after landing from Paris, and a few hundred agents raided his New York City pad. He's in court Monday morning, been charged with child sex trafficking.
That'll be interesting.
So maybe he'll get a plea bargain again, but it depends is he going to talk or is he going to get let off? Because the weirdness, it does look like Trump's really gunning for these guys. But
Yeah.
remember, Trump's got Dershowitz in his cabinet and Acosta.
I don't know
They're
if...
both tied up in this, aren't they?
I don't know if Dershowitz is in the cabinet. I think there's almost...
I thought he was pretty close to Trump.
I know they did, but I don't think he has an official, like, government position. I think if anything, at this rate, he's almost one of those, what would I call them? Like, auxiliary characters, where it's like Bannon at this point, where it's like he might have been involved in the...
I thought he might have been Epstein's lawyer, and he's also been accused by the women too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't think he has, like, an official government role or capacity.
Google it.
Like, huh?
Google it.
Okay, but let's just hope the connection doesn't fuck up Alan.
But you have got Acosta for sure. He is in the cabinet, right, isn't he?
Who, Jim Acosta? The
Is it not
CNN
Acosta?
guy?
Am I getting the names fucked up?
You might be. Well, the only Acosta I can think of offhand is the CNN guy, who, I mean, he's...
No, not that thick.
Could be different people. Yeah, I don't think, Dershowitz is... Let's see. I mean, it said he joined Harvey Weinstein's legal team as a consultant. But it just says he's done commentary on Trump and stuff like that. I do think Trump, like, employed him at one point in time before the presidency.
Yeah.
Like had him on retainer or something. You know what this reminds me of, though, speaking of? There's an interesting interview. Did you see between Jeffrey, not Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Ron Jeremy and Jesse Lee Peterson. Did you see that interview?
I saw bits of it.
Ron Jeremy touched on something that I thought was very funny and revealing, and sort of ties into some of the rants that Owen Benjamin would go on about Jews and the pornography industry. And Jeremy was sort of letting the cat out of the bag, but not even realizing he was doing so, where he basically was saying all of the men involved in the pornography industry were Jews, like during the golden age of porn. He started naming off the male actors, who owned the studios, and all this stuff. And he said there were no Jewish women involved whatsoever because of the sort of, cultural type thing where it's like, the father would go to the son and be like, oh, go get him, go get the girls, whatever. And the women would just be told, don't you dare. Don't you even think about it. Like, you are to...
Yeah, Jews get it, man.
Like and he would say there's a double standard, and what you would basically have is all these Jewish men just, boning
It's
all
not a
these
double
Christian
standard.
women.
It goes back to Lagos. Like the people
Well,
who
yes.
get affected by it have to embrace it. So
Double standard by modern sensibilities, but it's the reality of the situation as far as what works best
if the
for.
wizards can sell the spell, then
Yeah,
they can gain the consent. You have to invite that vampire in.
I know, and it's it's so funny
Women
because
like to do porn. That's what they want to do now.
yeah, they do. I mean, and it's funny because like I can think about it, and it's like even from in just the small sample size that is the women I've dated, like the one Jewish girl I dated was very, the idea of her even sending you a picture of her tits was like out of the question. But there would be some of these girls I knew that went to Catholic school and all that, and they would just be on their own accord sending you pictures and stuff, being like, what the hell? Like, I'm fine with waiting the hour until I see you, until seeing the goodies, but, if you want to fill my inbox up with your porn pictures, okay. Like you said, a lot of women I mean, I'll tell you what, I even, like, one time remember stumbling upon a ex-girlfriend's, like, porn history in her computer, and I'm like, oh my god, like, you are more into watching women being slapped around and spit on than any guy I know. And it sort of is that being uncomfortable being a woman thing where they're like told, you shouldn't be in this submissive role because they're all like, well, I'm an independent woman, I'm going to be a teacher, I can do it on my own, I don't need a man. And it's like, okay, yeah, but then when you're going into your room by yourself and feeling yourself like you are watching women be degraded because you are overcompensating for the fact that you're like, I don't need a man, but I want a man to slap me and choke me in the bedroom. And it's like, there's a healthier balance to be found than that.
Did you see Black Pill did something on that called Being Porned, about the Hollywood movie that made kind of the idea that if you did object to the upcoming porn that's going to happen, that it would mean you were anti-Semitic.
No.
You ever watch that? It's called Being Porned. And it's about the first film, because back in the day, Hollywood just hinted at the idea of lovers. They just hinted at the idea of that in films. You never saw any kind of display of public affection in the film.
So it's basic. So the standard
the
basically.
First film that hit Hollywood with an actual love scene where they used like an innocent kind of woman.
And you know what's so funny about that though?
It was the Jew that did it in the film, and everyone was like against it. It wasn't because they didn't want to see porn. It was because it was a Jew that made it. And that film was where Hollywood's first started. That's when it all just started spiraling into what it is now.
Well, and I know that's why a lot of people.
It's in porn, it's in like a chess piece. It's a really good video.
That's why a lot of people say that it's a sort of Jewish conspiracy theory to bring porn into the Americas because there was that anti-Semitic argument wrapped into it. The thing I was going to say that I think is really funny is
I just think they weaponized it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Benjamin's right.
But the thing I think is so funny is basically what you're describing of how it used to be, where it was just sort of alluded to. That's what you saw.
Yeah, you wouldn't even get the main two stars kissing, let alone fucking.
Well, that's what you saw in the Queen biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody. That it's like, I was watching it and I'm like, wait, so you basically, like, the most you see of Freddie Mercury with a guy is like a longing stare at a truck rest stop bathroom. Like the guy
hinted it.
Like
use your imagination.
Like Mercury's on the phone, like giving this dreamy gaze into a guy walking into the bathroom, and then next thing you know, he has AIDS. Like that's like, and it's like, and I was just like, this is so ridiculous. The fact that they are like won't
and
even.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah, it really is. But it's so funny to think that it's like that's now the handling they're giving like gay relations in media to sort of romanticize it, and all of this stuff is sort of keep it shrouded in that secrecy and all of that. While, if it was a man and a woman, you'd be seeing a scene with like titties and asses and all that shit
Yeah,
just
right.
being thrown right out there.
Yeah, there should have been some butt pumping scenes in that.
You don't even have to take it that far. You could have at least just shown them in a room together or saying hello. Like, I mean, there wasn't even that. There wasn't even any interaction. Like,
It is weird how all these icons we were told were like the, the kind of ladies' man, whatever they call it, were probably just homos.
oh, what? I was going to do a video on this at one point, which was going to be called the heteronormative patriarchy built by homosexuals, where it was going to go through a lot of, because even Elvis, they say that Elvis used to get really freaked out in his movies about appearing limp-wristed, like a sort of gay flailing, like whatever. So he used to overanalyze his body movements to make sure he appeared masculine. And they said that Elvis had a best friend he kept around with him, like this little boy, or not little boy, like pedophile little boy, but like a younger, attractive male that was an adult. I didn't mean little boys and little boy. Got to make that clear when we're talking about people in Hollywood and media. Elvis was not a pedophile. Homosexual,
Well,
yes.
well,
Pedophile,
he
not.
was.
Might have been. I don't. But
No, he was fucking underage girls early on. He had a girlfriend that was underage.
well, but the thing is, see, and that makes sense though. Even with what I'm about to say, is Elvis's whole thing was he didn't want illegitimate children. So he thought it would be safer for him to have sex with guys and not have the chance of an unwanted pregnancy than sleep with random women and have one of them show up and be like, it's your kid. So, I mean, even that might make sense if he's sleeping with younger women who may not be developed or ready for pregnancy. I mean, back then, I guess people were getting married a lot younger too, so if Elvis was sleeping with, say, a 16-year-old, again, 16-year-olds weren't what 16-year-olds are now. Got to keep that in mind. But it still is dicey territory, depending on how old he was and all of that. So, but a lot of them, Marlon Brando,
JFK looks like he was homo.
the
Mick
Kennedy,
Jagger.
yeah. No, I've
Sorry.
heard that about the Kennedys too. I've heard that about the Kennedys. Especially who's the other one? I don't know if it was Bobby or maybe it was Teddy, but one of them definitely was. But yeah, there's a lot of people. Even Justin Timberlake. I hear that about Justin Timberlake and that he's married to Jessica Biel and it's just basically like a beard. Will Smith and Jada Smith, the Smiths.
Right, yeah.
People have said that all the time that they go out to gay
Steven
gay
Crowder.
clubs together. So, apparently, Steven Crowder, which it's funny that I'll tell you with Owen Benjamin, that was one of the funniest streams I've ever seen because some of the questions like he raises where it's like assless chaps. Like, who chooses to go out and wear assless pants and thinks it's funny? I don't. I never would. Like, why? Whose mind does that cross? Like, yeah, some of the things that when Owen Benjamin gave his depiction of Crowder and sort of some of like the demeaning things he would put Not Gay Jared through and all of that stuff, where it's like it certainly shows you that guy in a different light. And some of it I look at where I'm like, well, listen, if someone's going to run their own business, there is sort of a me on top cutthroat attitude that you have to have. But some of it is where it's like a lot of the other stuff he brought up, it is unnecessary. It doesn't make
He's
things.
hardly crushing anymore either, is he?
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all. I think he's just sort of now lost in this sort of Blaze TV, nonsense. He's not doing anything that's like pushing any boundaries or anything like that. He's like well into a safe zone now.
I haven't really paid attention to him since Gay Gerard left.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. A lot of it, I think, has kind of
I thought
gone
his
downhill
phone
since
computer
then.
was just shit. He had that one good thing when he came in as it's that transgender
Yeah.
thing, but other than that, everything else he did was just
Well, and that
terrible.
was another thing too with the whole Sven computer thing, where even that whole dynamic was very like Sven was cucked. Like, he couldn't even shout out his social media on the show. And it's like, they play it up as if it's like a running joke that he's not allowed to say it, but he really wasn't allowed to say it. Like, how fucked up is that? Like, you have all these people on your team.
Well, it's gaslighting, isn't it? I mean, in many ways.
Sorta, yeah. And it's like, all that stuff. People have done videos showing where it's like both Sven and Jared did not leave on good terms.
It's
So,
sad because he seems like a cool guy, and like his brother seemed pretty cool.
yeah.
Does seem like a nice guy.
Well, and I mean,
It could be that he just got made an offer he couldn't refuse. It kind of strange when you've got this media network chasing you.
Well, and again, context matters. Where it's like, I've always said about Obama, I'd probably enjoy hanging out with Obama. Do I want him to?
Smells of sulfur.
Well, yeah, that aside, but he seems very personable. Now, does that mean I want him governing over me? No, not at all. And I think Crowder would be like that, where it's like, if you were to hang out with Crowder, it'd probably be a lot of fun. Working for him, probably not so much fun, because again, then you're an employee. It's the dynamics that I think really set it aside, and that's where, like, with Owen, I think Owen was always on Crowder's level, if not a level above. So that's why Owen didn't really tolerate a lot of that.
More than we realized.
Yeah.
Yeah, Owen's been crushing pretty hard.
What's funny though is I found this. It popped up in my recommended. These YouTubers, Revenge of the Cis. Have you ever seen them?
No.
They basically stalk Owen Benjamin and Vox Day, and
right, yeah, I have seen that.
And then just make videos about them, calling it childish, and calling it silly.
They wouldn't have any kind of content.
I know, exactly, and I point that out to them, and it's so funny because they're like, "Oh, you're just dick riding Vox and this and that," and my whole thing was them is I said, if they're as pathetic as you make them out to be, then who are you to be spending so much time devoted towards these pathetic people? And then they try to turn that around on me, being like, so are you saying that they're easy targets and that, we're just picking on easy targets? And I'm like, well, kinda, yeah. That's what you're selling. That's what you're putting out there. Like, you're saying they're so pathetic, so who are you to be obsessing over pathetic people?
Try and get a response so their numbers go up.
Yeah. It's so childish. Like, their thing for Vox is calling him, like, Teddy Spaghetti because he moved to Italy or something like that. And, like some of the things they bring up where it's like, oh, well, they're in Italy and he's not even at his own place. It's one of his wife's friends' places or something like that. Now, I looked into house-sitting gigs in Europe because this is, again, a thing. Like, when my ex's grandmother died, like, her mother inherited, like, 2 Brooklyn brownstones and a villa or 2 in Italy. Like, people who have money, a lot of times, have second properties. So you would want someone and trust staying at your second property rather than nobody or a stranger or, like... So, but, I mean, for them to be making that criticism, not knowing that's a common thing throughout Europe... Like, it just shows them being closed-minded. Their criticisms, like, I was even trying to reason with them, being like, there are legitimate criticisms here that you can make about these two, and you guys are just so off in the woods about talking about Teddy Spaghetti and whatever, being like, he lives in Italy, so why does he even mention America? And it's like, what, like, I don't know, it's just pathetic, and it's really pathetic that people... Like I said, they look down upon someone so much and then just devote all of their time to them. Like, I can't get in that sort of mindset. Like, even at that, when you're paying attention to, like, the crazy social justice warriors and stuff like that, as deranged as they may seem, they wield power. Like... It's like a don't punch down type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going the other way recently. I've been avoiding a lot of news just quite a bit. Don't gosh, I've just got other stuff to do, but
Yeah.
Just like it's just comes to the conclusion that I think we figured it out that it doesn't matter what happens, nothing they tell us is true.
Yeah,
It's just time to face that now. I know it sounds bad for the future of the podcast. I don't see the point in telling you about the next false flag. I don't see the point in telling you about the next escalation because everything in the media is just not true.
yeah.
All of it. And we can keep like reviewing the next non-truth. You know,
Oh, let's see if he comes back.
something
Oh,
like
sorry, you almost cut out for a minute. But no, you're right. I mean, it's like, can you hear me?
welcome to
Yeah. It's like the sort of direct engagement with the daily news stuff. It's I think it started really setting in with like the sort of chemical attacks and even the Notre Dame fire thing where it's like if you end up commenting on these things, and it shows the real problem with the news media the way it is nowadays, where it's so, needing to say what something is the minute it's happening. And it's like, so much of the news is bullshit and false flags and psyops that it's like, you just end up making an ass of yourself by trying to comment on things ongoing. I think it's far better, that's why like the channels I really like are like, Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes, because they are way zoomed out on things. Like they are talking about things in a historical context, or things in a like a futurist context, where it's like, where is technology going? I mean, I think there is things in the news and things to comment on, but it's not in your daily news stream. It's more of a tying things together into the big picture.
yeah, it's
Because,
going to be weird because like, what am I going to do now? I don't have a job. What am I going to do all day? So I'm just
well,
not into spiraling anymore. I'm not into porn.
and I was
The
gonna
cannabis
say,
community keeps me kind of busy.
especially with the upcoming, presidential cycle that's coming, because that's
The
just gonna
debate,
be
I just saw a couple of clips and it was like, who's up for open borders? And they all put their hand, and
everyone.
it's like, oh, well, Trump's just won then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you
But
needed an
what about it?
example
You're
of
like,
the
oh,
hive mind, those debates
yeah.
were the obvious hive mind thing, and it's like, of course, the one that I said is the only reasonable one on that stage, and I'm not even saying I back her positions, because last time when
She put her hand up, didn't she? That she didn't want criminal charges on any illegal immigration.
huh,
Didn't she put her hand up?
for what?
When they asked them to put their hand up and say, right, do you think we should not give convictions to people that cross the border illegally? And they all put their hand up. Didn't she
Uh,
put her hand up?
might have, yeah. I mean, I don't know her positions on the border, which is again why I'm giving the caveat, because people got this misconstrued before last time when I mentioned her. I don't back her positions. I just think she's the only one that has
Yeah, she's the one.
positions. Like I
And
think
she's
she,
got Joe Rogan bigging her up.
yeah.
It's
Well,
going to be quite
because
bad.
like the thing I say to people is, if let me put it like this, is if Cory Booker or Kamala Harris or any of them came out talking about Trump's transgender military ban, I would say they're just virtue signaling. If Gabbard came out and talked about transgenders in the military, I'm going to listen to what she has to say, because she's actually been in the military and was working with and fighting alongside those people. So I would think her position is based a little more on something than what are the politics of the moment, what is going to be the safe answer, things like that's where I'm saying I think she actually has positions. Everyone else, it's whatever their position is whatever the latest political fashion is
I
at the
can't see
moment.
anyone putting up, even bothering to put up a fight against Trump. It's just not even worth
No.
it.
Well, and the thing is they're all going to tear each other apart and expose each other so much that by the time they get to Trump,
There'd be no Democratic Party left. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they really won't. Because even at that, you see with this whole, open borders, should we give all the illegals health care and this, and that? And all I could think where I'm watching this is like, who are you selling this to? Like, what voting group? And I mean, this is again why they're fighting so hard for, voter ID laws to not be a thing. Because it's like you really have to say these people must be counting on illegals voting, because how are you selling this to Americans? What benefit do Americans have besides continuing to look down on brown people? Like, it's so ridiculous. It's like, and one of the funniest critiques I've heard about this is they're saying the modern American left has now blown past Mao and Stalin and Hitler, because they may have been socialists and communists, but they were not saying, let's do this for the world. They were saying, let's do this for our nation. They were, wanting their nation to be strong. They were promoting births within their nation and their people. There was a sort of inherent nativism in all of them, where it's like, now you have it where it's like, well, let's replace Americans and set up a socialist society with the new Americans and all of this stuff, where it's like, this is a desire for a socialist communist system the world has not even seen yet, where it's like, they're beyond healthcare to every American. They're at, let's give healthcare to every non-American that's in America. And one of the other things I think is interesting, Tim Pool brought this up, where Joe Biden came out and said, what did he say? He said, illegal border crossers shouldn't be the focus of deportations, or something like that. And Tim Pool was like, this is crafted very, very wisely, where it basically says, like, you're not going to be the focus. So what it means is, you can come into the country, we'll even give you health care when you get here, you can work for less than minimum wage, you won't have the rights of a citizen, you won't have the advantages of citizenship, but we're not going to deport you yet. We reserve the right to deport you, because we're going to keep you in this second-class citizen position, but we're going to entice you to come here. Like, it's this weird sort of, like, it mirrors slavery in so many ways, where it's like, they're not citizens, they don't have the rights of citizens, you're enticing them here to, quote-unquote, do the jobs no one else will, and trying to give them perks to entice them to come here, but then you're also saying, well, we reserve the right to drop the hammer on you at any point in time and send you away. And it's like, the position they are crafting in their just sort of spouting out whatever virtue signals at that moment is really a horrible position to try to sell these people and try to say you're the compassionate one throughout.
Yeah, I'll have to get out of it pretty soon. When Trump gets it, it means we're gonna have Kushner for 2024.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's got to be some sort of contingency plan. But I'll tell you what cracks me up? Did you see the thing where Trump, like, tweeted out the meme about him being president forever?
I saw him going on about airports during the Civil War. Fucking dumb. He is hilarious sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some meme he put out where it was like a Trump thing, and you have like a placard that said like, Trump 2016, then Trump 2020, and then it goes to 2024, then 2032, and then like it just kept showing. And like the left, of course, any joke he makes, they take completely serious, and they're like, Trump is putting out the idea that he'll be president forever, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
he made a joke.
Obama's doing that though.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And I mean, it's all very, very predictable at this point in time.
No, that's fair enough. We did that to Obama, to be fair.
Yeah. But I mean, but here's part of the thing though, is part of that is because Obama was passing like the NDAA and all these contingency plans, the same as Bush. I mean, Bush was passing all of these things where if a big enough emergency happened, he could be president forever. Now, one of the things to bring it back to what you were saying about the racist and the violent thing, you had recently the Andy No in Seattle get attacked, and then you had people who you had some ginger guy who got arrested, posted up outside some guy's house. I think he was like loosely affiliated with Identity Europa or one of those groups, but posting up outside this guy's house with a loaded handgun. So, I mean, you have levels of violence increasing on the left-hand side of things, and something's got to be done about it. Because between people showing up outside Tucker Carlson's house, banging on the doors, and all this, like, you're going to have them show up at the wrong person's house, and a handful of people are going to get shot, and then it's going to just powder keg from there.
That's my Grand Theft Auto conspiracy.
Yeah.
That game's ready to rock and roll, but they can't release it because of what America's like at the moment. Can you imagine they released a game now like Grand Theft Auto, like when they did 5 years ago? That came out now.
Well, you know, I think that's why I've
You're
been...
not going to hear the end of it.
I've been getting little
The
news...
game's ready. It's fucking amazing. It's ready to rock and roll. It's just Rockstar aren't stupid.
No, you're right. I've been even getting updates about it, that they basically have a new Grand Theft Auto they've been sitting on. And it's probably tied into that. I mean, I did see something about the new one.
They can't please the right and they can't please the left, so they're like, just fuck it.
Yeah.
And yes, they try and program it to be like 20 years, like set 20 years ago in the 80s. Or
that's what I was gonna say. That's what they've done, is they've brought it back to Vice City, so that it's like taking place in the 80s Miami area and stuff. Yeah,
Can you imagine they released a modern day GTA now? Just like, what would they? It would just be, because I know how good it could be, but how people could just complain and complain and complain.
Yeah.
Outrage, outrage, outrage.
Well, yeah,
outrage.
like I said initially, like, you can't have any bad guys.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto is going to go through.
Yeah. Well, and it's like just insane the level of scrutiny, like that. You're right. I mean, with the way the media is, you know, anything, whether you can punch a woman or, you know, beat up a hooker or anything Grand Theft Auto related is just going to create endless amounts of controversy and conflict and clickbait articles and the whole nine.
Yeah, because GTA mosque update, you can update mosques into the town. Schools, children, babies, you can go for them now.
Yeah, they could create, like... Well, I think that's part of, you know, the one thing I think is so interesting is, seeing videos. I think I had done a video on the channel recently about it where, you know, again, I was talking about the Call of Duty response and everything like that. I mean, I think I want to pre-order the game and just... I'll probably end up pre-ordering it and doing streams of it and sort of pointing out the propaganda in it, because they're saying these are all going to be ripped right from the headlines. Like the Syria white hat thing, that's why you see the white hats in the trailer, because they are telling that story. But are they really telling that story, or are they telling the narrative? And that's going to be one of the interesting things, is all of the levels on it they're saying are ripped right from the headlines. So it's going to be a lot of propaganda. I mean, we already know the CIA is tied into the development of these games. That's been known for forever. And they've had predictive programming in them, whether it's Paris attacks.
Yeah, it's a shame, like back when I was a kid, like when you had PCs, you used to have a lot of freeware. Freeware was the thing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't get that PS4 and Xbox with people producing their own content, their own games. There don't seem to be any of that kind of...
You know what I will say? Because I actually, when I got my new TV, I upgraded my Xbox to the One X. So I had my other original Xbox, and I traded it to my niece. She had got a Nintendo Switch for Christmas, but she wasn't happy with it and just wanted an Xbox for herself. So the Nintendo Switch is really good with that. As far as... And I imagine what it is. I'm not 100% right, but I imagine there's probably a price to get into the stores. So I think that's what's discouraging a lot of people from making...
just maybe if you had a modded one, just you can mods.
Yeah, so you can run homebrew ones and stuff. Because I'll tell you, a lot of the Switch titles, I have probably a dozen or two Switch games that were like 99 cents or less. And they're very akin to mobile games. Like there has to be something where it's easy to port an Android title for an Android phone over to the Nintendo Switch or something, because that just has a lot of, I mean, dirt cheap games. I'm talking about little puzzle games I bought for 19 cents. And you don't get that on Xbox or PS4 though, where it's like everything is much more expensive. Even the indie titles, there aren't as many. There's got to be some sort of regulatory. But like you're saying, you'd expect, because PCs are like that. I have this one game client thing called Game Jolt, and it's all just, indie developers, whether they've like reskinned an old Mortal Kombat game and added new characters in, but in the old 2D looking versions, and it's all little mods and homebrew stuff like that. And that's where it's going on the computer end of things, and I think it's why people prefer the PC gaming, but consoles definitely not. I do think it's interesting though, the shift you have in gaming where it's now less about consoles. Like Google is revealing their streaming thing, and there are a lot of concerns with that between the free version and the paid version,
Well,
because everyone's
yeah.
saying the
Do
free
you remember
version.
when Xbox One came out? They said it has to be online all the time, and
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Fuck that." So it probably is that system where the public just weren't ready for it, and now they're willing to accept that everything will be online
Well,
now.
yeah, because now they're basically saying, we're going to
There
do.
seems to be the machine that they tried to release in the first place, but people were like, I don't know about that level of
Well,
supply.
because that's
And
what
now
the
they've accepted it.
that's what the Google Stadia thing is where it's like online all the time, streaming. Like you're not even going to have to download your games to the console. It's going to be like Netflix basically, where it's all just streamed as you're playing it. Xbox is announcing their cloud thing for it. Now, the interesting thing with Google that people are saying is, you're going to have the paid version that isn't going to have ads or whatever. And the other thing though is it's going to be mining your data. Like it's going to be mining your data and selling it. That's Google's whole MO. That's what they do. I mean, it's basically again putting more surveillance tech into your house and stuff. Um there was something I was just going to say. I'm trying to remember if it was about Xbox's cloud service or one of them that I was just thinking about. I forget what. Um what's the Google thing with that? I don't know, but I mean, that's the way it's going though, with the online all the time and being able to access whatever, wherever. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So, interesting thing on the Switch recently, I was looking at the games that were on sale, and I saw NBA 2K19 for $3. So I'm like, what the fuck? A $60 game is on sale for $3? All right, I guess I'll get it for, if I'm ever at work and feel like playing a basketball game or something. So of course, after it goes on sale for $3, what are the headlines I see about this game? Well, now this game has put unskippable ads into the loading screens. And this is one of the things where I think these game companies are getting crafty, because if you watch a sports event, you're obviously going to see sponsors. They have their banners up in the stadiums and everything like that. So it's now giving them means in which to put advertisements in the video games post buying them. They can update these ads and the software updates and things like that after the fact, and it's like you can't skip them, and they're able to just sort of write it off as, oh well, it's realistic, this is what it would be like if you're actually watching basketball and stuff, where it's like the video games, even like the AAA $60-$90 games, are basically filled with advertising and spyware nowadays.
Yeah, I can't see that console taking off.
Yeah, I think Google is going to flop with it. I don't think their effort is going to be very good. A lot of people think this is going to be the last round of consoles. that you're not even going to, like, basically after the next Xbox and PlayStation come out, you're not going to have consoles anymore, and you're just going to have TVs that all you need to buy is a controller for, and you can just run the things direct on your TV. Because
Or your goggles.
all the computing power will just be in the cloud, basically. Yeah, or your goggles at that point.
Yeah, just in time for 5G too.
Yep. Yeah. I was watching a David Icke thing actually where he's talking recently about the technology and how it's this shift between the holding it to then the wearing it to then just microchip implanting and all that stuff, and it's like,
Especially when it's all around you anyway.
yeah. Yep. Well, and he talked about these places in Sweden where it's like, you'll get a job somewhere and they'll be like, oh, well, we need to microchip you because the doors won't open for you unless you have it. Like, that's your ID card.
Yeah, and it'd be handy because they'll be able to tune in sound. So if you're at work and you don't want to hear a particular person, you can just tune them out. You'll be able to just have the sounds you do need and drown out the ones you don't need.
Yeah.
Not get distracted.
Yeah, we're definitely approaching Black Mirror level very quickly. And one of the things he talks about in the videos, he says, Ray Kurzweil, he's like, everyone calls Kurzweil a futurist and thinks he's making these predictions. He's on the board at Google. Like, he's just telling you what they're working on.
Are we still going to Belgium for Halloween?
Oh, we should. That would be an
happen?
interesting video.
Would be good.
Huh?
Would be good.
Yeah, I should look at my calendar, see when Halloween falls this year. What day of the week it's on.
Because even if that fails, you can always head back to London because Brexit will be like the big thing that would have just kicked off.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I saw a funny clip this week. It was that podcaster V did a video on it of that woman who I don't know if she was at the EU Parliament or what, but she was sitting next to Farage and she gave a speech about colonies overthrowing their, colonizers and slaves rebelling against slaveholders and all this stuff. And of course, because she referenced that, the BBC latches onto it and they're like, well, don't you think it's, insensitive for you to use the word oppression? And it's like they're basically like, how dare you use our words? And it's like, she was just like, you're missing the point. But she was just not backing down. And they were like, don't you think you should apologize? And she's like, no. Like, I think you're really going to, especially around Trump's re-election, this whole apologizing thing is going to be a wrap. People are just going to stop being like, oh, I'm sorry. You called me a racist. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. People are just going to be like, fuck your racism. Which is the response they always should have had. Like, this whole language policing, language bullying stuff it's tired. No one gives a shit anymore.
And no one will believe it if it really happens.
Well, that's the ultimate thing that's gonna happen is, you're gonna see legitimate versions of all of this stuff and just no one's gonna have the words for it anymore because it's the crying wolf thing has just been done over and over. But alright, well, let's wrap up for the day. I think I need to get some food in me.
Yeah, man.
But
Cool.
alright. We'll
See you in
do it again
Belgium.
later. Alright, take care, man.
Bye.